Hello, my name is Eric Feigelson. I'm a professor of astronomy and astrophysics at Penn State University in the United States. And I am not a meteor researcher. I'm an astrostatistician. I work on the interface between astronomical research and modern statistical methodology. And I'd like to thank Svetlana Kolomiets for inviting me to speak briefly with you about the sort of things that I do and that might be relevant to you. And if I'm off target and it's not so useful, I'm sorry. Let me share my screen and present a brief talk. Okay. So as you can see, I sort of do different things on the interface. I help organizations like the IAU sort of promote statistics in the astronomical world. I've helped run conferences with statisticians and astronomers and summer schools for graduate students. This summer school is online. So it would be easy for you, well, except for the timing, for your students or young researchers in the Ukraine or elsewhere to participate in the summer school in statistics for astronomers that we've been running for 16 years. I also serve as editor of the Astronomical Journal, the Planetary Science Journal, the Astrophysical Journal, specializing in statistical methodology. And that's why I have these books. I'm going to show you these books because of that role. Okay, let me present just a few slides. Each one is a different situation from your field. I hope I understand it a little bit. And what sort of a statistician might say about it and help you treat it. So here are examples of where you have lots and lots of points in a low dimensional space. We plot them in 2 dimensions. Here's really 3 dimensions. There could be, 5 dimensions. And your patterns are complicated. They're nonlinear. They're inhomogeneous. They're not even uni-valued. And there's non-Gaussian distributions. So that something like standard ordinary regression just don't apply very much at all to this situation. Excuse me. There we go. So what can one do? Well, the answer is not much, but I would say that you're more interested in the underlying smooth distribution than you are of the individual points. So you might want to smooth the data. Easily just pass a Gaussian over it, a kernel density estimator, and then you make a contour map. And it could tell you, for instance, that the occurrence here might be 4 times higher than the occurrence here, or something like this. And it will show you the shape in a smooth way. There's also, for cases where it's not multi-valued, but maybe cases sort of like this, there's non-parametric regression, local regression, where one fits splines or similar functions to the data, local polynomials. But there's a clever sort of technique they have called quantile regression. So a spline will go through the mean, but a quantile might also go through the 10% and the 90% quantile in the vertical direction. And it will give you a curve. And that might be useful to you for visualizing and maybe even interpreting the data set. So it's called non-parametric regression. It's also called semi-parametric regression. So here's a typical book. It's not very thick. It's a cookbook that has a code and output from the code from a language called R. And R is the statistician's computer language. It's really, really cool. And that's why that's where astronomers can really, and space scientists can really become very sophisticated quickly, is using R code. So I mentioned a couple R packages. There's 17,000 CRAN packages with maybe 150,000 functionalities. Nobody knows. It grows several packages every day. There's more than 200 books with R in the title that have this, they teach you methodology and they teach you R at the same time. My next slide is similar, but this time it's on a sphere. And spherical statistics is not very common. It's done sometimes in statistics. There's only one book, somewhat old, that covers the methodology. And I think that in this case, where you have meteor showers that are sort of distinct, and and they sort of look like ellipsoids, I might try fitting them with Gaussians, with bivariate Gaussians, elliptical Gaussians, designed to be on the sphere. So it's not a Gaussian distribution, it's called a Kent distribution. It's the generalization of Gaussians for spherical geometries. And so what I would do in this case is try to do a maximum likelihood mixture model, where each component has a right ascension and a declination, has an intensity. So there's 3 parameters for each component. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 0. There may be 20 different components. The number of components, K, is itself a parameter of the model. So if it's 20 components with 3 parameters, it's 60 plus 1 for K, 61 dimensional parameter space. So maximizing the likelihood is actually an interesting problem in optimization. It's not so easy. But when you do it, if you could do it, it would give you the centroids of them quantitatively, their sizes, their populations, all in a mutually self-consistent fashion. So that's one possible approach. Here's a situation that's similar, but I'll just assume that it's not it's in a Euclidean space. So it's 2-dimensional in this case. We have entry speed versus longitude for several showers. And your field seems to have a lot of data sets that have lots and lots of points in a low dimensional space with all sorts of interesting structure. And you're quite interested in the clusters, okay, that these come from specific, I guess, asteroids. So here you might choose a classic clustering algorithm such as k-means or hierarchical clustering. These have been around for 70 years, maybe. There's some newer ones that are very elegant. T-SNE is quite amazing at high dimensions and bringing it down to 2 dimensions, even with very complex structures. And hierarchical density-based clustering analysis, DB-scan, is fairly nice. I think might do something nice in this case. And then a completely non-parametric approach is just Voronoi tessellation, dividing it up into little tiny cells and just looking for clusters of small cells. If you have points where each point has another property that you measure, maybe brightness, maybe color, maybe, I'm sorry, mass, that could be called a spatial point process with mark variables, an additional variable. And there's statistical methods that not only analyze the spatial distributions, but analyze how the mark variables are spatially related to the location of the points. So are they random, or are the mark variables clustered as well? And that could be quite powerful. And finally, and I noticed this in some papers in your field, that there's wavelet analysis. And wavelet analysis is nice because it finds structures that don't require a Gaussian shape, essentially, on different scales and in different locations. And wavelets are really quite powerful. Perhaps a little less well known are curvelets, which means curved basis functions instead of straight ones or round ones. And that might be appropriate for some of your cases you're looking for streaks in multidimensional space. So here we go. I have some books here. This is a classic undergraduate textbook, Gold Cluster Analysis by Everett. It's been around for decades. It's not difficult, and it gives some of the fundamentals of the field. Here's an example of a wavelet book. This is a wavelet book for R by Nason. And this is my favorite one. It may not be quite appropriate. It's more a question of it's very good at finding sort of stationary patterns, but it does non-stationary ones also. Spatial point processes, methodology, and applications with R by Adrian Baddeley and company. He's a lifelong spatial statistician. And this book is 800 pages thick, and it has all the R code built into it of a package that he wrote. He probably spent 10 years or more with his colleagues, taking all the methodology in his field of spatial point processes and putting them into a coherent code, all within R. It's quite an amazing book. And then at the bottom, I have a wavelet curvelet book by Jean-Luc Sterck. And Sterck he really is a statistician, but he's actually an astronomer in France at CEA Saclay. And he and his colleagues wrote a rather advanced book that could be quite appropriate for this kind of problem, to characterize it quantitatively. Now, I think some of you have situations where it's not points, you have an image. It might not be it might be an image of the sky, like right ascension, declination, brightness, or it might be one of these more sort of synthetic images, like from radar and from radio observations, where this axis is time and next axis is either radio brightness or radio brightness or something else. And so image analysis is actually not sort of the regime of statisticians. They don't call themselves statisticians. They call themselves computer scientists who do computer vision. And it's very, very big these days with especially in America, with what they call Facebook and Instagram. Everything is image analysis. They have an enormous number of methods for image analysis. So in this field is something called image segmentation, where you want to divide the field into uninteresting regions. In this case, it's black. In this case, it's noise. And then this is something interesting. Now, when it's bright, you don't need any method. But what if you're looking for something fainter, where you know something about the structure you're looking for, but it's in the noise? So it might allow you to go deeper. So here's some books on image. This is one of the engineering textbooks they use at my university, Digital Image Processing by Gonzalez and Woods. I like the one from Germany by Jan. And then there's some specialized books just on advanced techniques of image segmentation. So it would sort of carve out for you regions with some guidance as to the shape. The simplest one is the radon transform for finding streaks, for finding lines at any orientation in the data. So it would be very good for that, the radon transform. But there are others as well that could be adapted to more complex situations, such as this one. So my final comments is that this is just a little bit of the many, many things that one could do. A statistical methodology is just huge. It's just vast. Okay, it's growing faster than astronomy has. So they're totally things that you and I've never heard of, basically, that could be used for our for your situation. Or situations for your scientific analyses, and maybe your data analysis too, but generally astronomers do data analysis fine. It's the science analysis where more sophisticated methods can often come to play. So many of these methods are in Wikipedia. Wikipedia is very good, but you have to know something before you start, and Wikipedia doesn't teach you that well. So unfortunately, they keep on publishing books, which normally astronomers don't read books anymore. but I recommend that you read books in some of these fields, because they teach you and they have the code built in, and then you can try to adapt it to your problem relatively easily. The codes are in R. the public domain software written by and for statisticians and the customers like us who use statistics. And the challenge then is not really coding. Coding is 5 lines of R, can do something very sophisticated. 1 line of R, a few lines of input output or something, or graphics. But so the coding is relatively easy. The problem is knowledge in thinking, knowledge of some of the vast realms of statistics, and thinking about what can I use for what's my science question, and how can I formulate my science question in a statistical fashion, and then find a tool for it, and then apply it. So thank you very much. I think I'll also see you at the meeting, but I'm not sure. Okay, good. Bye-bye.